Welcome to the Savvy Leader Podcast. I'm Kristin, and I'm here to challenge how you think, lead, and show up. Because this isn't about surface level success. This is about clarity, alignment, and making decisions that actually move your life forward. If you're ready to stop performing and start leading with real intention, then you are in the right place, my friends. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the next episode of the Savvy Leader Podcast. I'm Kristin. Today I am with Monica Swanson. I'm really excited to hear her story and talk about her journey because she's got some really exciting news coming up. And I just cannot wait to dive in. But this is Monica Swanson. She is president of MonRoe Business Solutions and soon to be author. So we're going to dig into
Yay.
all of that great stuff, such exciting news. Share with us how this all began and what brought you then to write this amazing book you have coming out. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this discussion too. So let's hope the weather doesn't impact us, but let's see my
Yes.
story. Yeah. So we're both dealing with a little bit of rainstorms. I have over 30 plus years in large global corporate. So I was with two very large companies and, had great experiences. It's those large global corporate roles can also be a bit consuming. So I was just pondering, how do I have a bit better work-life balance? And what do I want to do with this latter part of my career? I had been part-time for 13 years when my kiddos were little, and that was just really a very defining moment for not only me, but my family and establishing some really good balance. So reflecting, and I thought, I want that balance again. So then all of a sudden, like a new restaurant, a new author or book, and everyone's talking about it. So this was, probably 3 years ago when I was pondering, and I just kept hearing about fractional. And so I leaned into understanding what that is, and between like what I desired for my life, and I thought, wow, I could help small, medium-sized businesses, using the experience that I've gotten from large global corporate. And I got very excited. That was the start of the next chapter. So it took a while for me to, actually make that transition and start up the business, but it was, the planning concept. So now here I am with my business, and it'll be 2 years coming up this fall. And my focus right now has primarily been kind of a specialty area, has been companies about 25 to 250 employee in size. We're typically someone in leadership. I find it's quite often the CFO is owning technology as a second job. And technology starts to become probably a four-letter word. It can be complex, especially when a company's growing. And that's usually where I can step in and help, enable their technology, enable their business growth, make the business come to life by letting technology work for them instead of slow them down. So that's my business. That's a quick story of how I got where I am.
I love it. You touched on a couple things that I really want, and I'd like to circle back on. First, you talked about work-life balance or balance. How would you describe, because there are lots of different definitions for work-life balance or just work balance or however you want to view that, because I think we as a society are kind of conflicted because some of us that are striving and working really hard, our hobby becomes our work, right? So
Yeah.
finding a balance doesn't always have to be a 50-50. Can you share with us a little bit about what work-life balance or just balance in your work looks like for you?
Yeah, that is wow. Well, we could talk 2 hours on just this one, right? And I was thinking about this yesterday because I had a very busy day and it was like hanging up the phone on one call, running out the door in order to get to, someplace I needed to be. And I thought, wow, I'm really, I'm going fast, but I'm okay. And so for me at that point, I was with an okay balance, but I know that I can't sustain that long term. So I think balance is different for absolutely everyone. And it does not mean you need a 40-hour week. It does not mean you need every night free, but what is the balance that you need and how do you maintain that? It's probably a little bit of an up and down, right? Like you can go at a higher pace for a while, but then when do you need to slow down in order to have a different pace? So when I was part-time for those 13 years, and it was, a little bit more difficult to do a lot of remote work back then. So my schedule was more 3 days in the office and 2 days at home. At least that's when I first started. So the story that my husband and I always laugh, but in the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, the kids at daycare, school, that type of thing. So Thursdays I'd come home and I would have my list. I'm going to accomplish all of these things, and I'd knock it all off. And Thursday night I was exhausted. And my husband innocently made a comment to me about, "You're kind of crabby on Thursday nights." And I was like, "You just said that out loud." We had a few passionate discussions, and I was like, "I'm knocking a lot of things off the list. I'm creating balance for our family. That's what I needed at that time." And then, our weekends were truly weekends. So I come to, our current state, and, we're now empty nesters. I'm actually very happy to be a first-time grandma, so I'm loving that as well. But to me, balance is a little bit more of, I still want to work. I want to contribute to, the work environment. I also want to be able to contribute to my family. So balance for me looks a little bit different. I just think people need to define what do they need and how do they get it. And if you are off balance, that's different for everyone. What do you need to do to slow down, whether it be for a week or defining a new schedule for yourself? But because I started this way back, I've been very good at managing what I need to balance myself and my family.
That's so good and so thoughtful. I think that so many of us get wrapped up in this idea that we have a day that's long and we're tired and we're burnt out, or whatever's happening, or like the question that your husband asked you. And, it makes us stop and rethink what we're doing, which is good
Yeah,
because we should be checking in with ourselves. But I don't know, like you said, that we need to be following some kind of 50-50 split, or, it's whatever works for you. And if your work does become some of your hobby or all of your hobby, if your work is your life and you're loving it, then go for it. I mean, stop thinking that
yeah,
unless your body's telling you otherwise, you don't have to think that you have to try to find some kind of balance if you're loving what you're doing, or if you're excited or
yeah,
passionate. And like you said too, there's seasons. You have seasons of busy times, and you were getting ready. So you were working really hard on Thursday so you could have a weekend, a real weekend.
yeah,
All of
of
those things are so
yeah,
smart, and I love the intuitiveness and, again, thoughtfulness that you put into just recognizing that. That's cool.
yeah,
Thank you. The other thing I
yeah.
want to touch on that you brought up, well, first I got to touch on the grandkids situation. Um, Gotta love them. I have nine, between my
Oh,
husband and I.
wow.
We've got lots of them. And I can tell you, lots of people love the grandkids. They're so much easier than your own kids. And I think that that's because we're at a point in our life, for us anyway, well, for me, I would say that I appreciate watching them learn and develop and grow because I get to.
Yes.
When you're
Yeah.
raising children, you're the disciplined person, you're the educator, you're the structure, you're the this, the that. You have to be so many things. And you don't really get the opportunity to just rest and relax in watching them learn and grow. And it can be so
Yeah.
fulfilling to see that. So
Yeah.
congratulations to you. It's
Thank you.
a
It
joy.
is so fun. Yeah.
All right. And then you touched on the four-letter word, TECH. That's right. TECH. That's it.
I
So
love it. I know it drives people crazy.
it does I mean, it's one of those things. Even if you're a techie person, I can be relatively kind of pretty good, but I got to get my head in the zone. If I'm not in the zone
Yes.
and someone comes at me from left field with some tech question, I'm just like, my head just goes numb. I mean, and I think so many people do. Like, you just get overwhelmed immediately. You just can't even grasp it because you don't live in that world. So, share with us a little bit of your experience on how you help people manage that particular four-letter word.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technology, as we know, is always changing. So I don't think anyone can say, I know technology. I think people that work in technology or say they love technology is probably more of an aptitude of, oh, let me dig in and figure this out. And that to me is what I find typically in most technologists. It's kind of that inquisitive, curious mindset for technology. But I find, I think about with my career, it was a lot of that. I did programming, I did architecture, I did all kinds of interesting things. Later on in my career, then owning a portfolio of projects and ensuring that they were successful and collaborating with the business. So there's a gamut of work that I did. But I think right now, what I see in these small to medium sized businesses, and I've helped smaller companies, I've helped larger than, when I say my ideal is 25 to 250, I'm just trying to paint that picture of I'm not going to come into a company and start configuring email. That's not me. I can point them in the right direction. I know people are excellent at that, but that's not my sweet spot and where I want to live in my business here. But it's typically more from a leadership perspective of, again, when I see a CFO owning technology as a second job, there's probably two things going on. Number one, they don't have the time for it. And number two, most likely they don't have a full interest, or the aptitude for it. They're a finance person and they should be living in their lane. There's a lot to manage in finances for a business. They can do the second job for a bit, just like you can do a lot of things for a while, but at some point you need to balance that, right? And get back down to this is my lane. And when companies are growing, they need to be a bit proactive in managing their technology. So when I talk to leadership teams, I'm trying to paint that picture of my guess is your technology at this point has been a bit reactive. Like, here's a problem, whack-a-mole, solve that. Here's a problem, whack-a-mole, solve that. But you can't continue that way. I would suspect that leadership team, they're probably proactively managing finances, talking about what does it look like now? How are we planning for the future from a finance perspective? The same thing when it comes to HR. What's our team? How are we going to grow? Looking at payroll, all of that. But are they proactively talking about technology? Because that's a critical part of your business as well. So most of the time, companies are, the leaders are like, oh, okay, I'm not sure we're doing that. That's a telltale sign. And it's also, I love to have them think about maturity of your technology. Because again, if you're doing, kind of the reactive whack-a-mole, you probably don't even have a full picture of what's going on because each department is managing their needs. So you need to then first become aware of what's fully going on in your company across the company. And that's usually eye-opening as well. Like, wow, I knew what was going on in finance, but I didn't know HR or sales and marketing. You guys are doing all that with tech and vice versa. Then once you become aware, you need to come up with a plan of how can technology better enable it. And I'm talking technology, but really it's business enablement, right? What are you trying to do? So do you have data to make decisions? Are you struggling with manual processes and repeated process? Like if I need to change a customer name, I need to do it in 3 spots. You think about the customer experience and the employee experience. Those are all business critical conversations you need to have. And technology has enabled that. So I love facilitating those conversations and helping the business understand we don't have to be struggling with, oh my goodness, I have 4 reports and I don't even know how to make a business decision. I would love to get you to the point of I proactively have this report and this report is in front of everyone in my leadership team and we can make the right decisions. Or, the manual process is like, oh yeah, I can do that versus I don't know how to do that because I have to go over here and then I have to do that and I'm still worried about the data. I don't want you to live in that space. I want it to be like, yeah, I know how to do that, or let's update a process so I can do it. And the team is then ready to take action on business decisions because the technology is helping you.
Wow, that's so insightful and incredibly um just I love the all-encompassing nature of it where you bring everybody in and you clear the air, you get everybody out of the woods. And they kind of can see where it is they're missing and how they can better grow and support their company. So, what are some of the biggest warning signs though that you see within a company's systems that are kind of tripping people up?
I typically hear, um, we have QuickBooks and we've outgrown it, or we have X product and we've outgrown it, or we know we're going to outgrown it in the next year or two. We are missing some sort of capability. Like we had a CRM and it's doing okay for us, but we are not using our CRM, tied to our website or tied to our forms for proactive conversations with our customers, getting that insight. I hear a lot as well, like some sort of customer experience, like our customers are receiving two or three invoices because we have separate, we maybe acquired a company and we've got separate, those strange customer experiences or those strange employee experiences. Like I had mentioned of we have to change a customer name, three times in order to get it, or we can't get one full view of our customer because sales has one view of them and finance has another view of them. So I don't really fully understand the state of a customer because one system is telling us from this point backwards on maybe what they bought, or this one is telling us their current state of their purchases and projections. And, so I just think it's that mismatch. And then you just can't make some of those decisions. I hear a lot of very frustrating manual processes as well. Um, like you have to expend extensive time accomplishing X report. Like one person spends 6 hours a week accomplishing, production scheduling, for example. That's a lot of time. And that's also a risk if you have one person that's doing it. So that might be an opportunity for better systems, better processes, potentially AI. So peeling back those layers.
I like how you described it as a mismatch. Because I think that things like that, it seems to me that when it comes to business, especially in business and growth, you start out as something small, and so you got one person doing everything, and then you bring on another person, and they're sharing all the everything, and slowly but surely, as you bring people on, you divide up the responsibilities, but you don't always evaluate the responsibilities to make it less, to, like you just said, incorporating AI, looking at different programs, or, one person spending 6 hours doing this one report because they've just always done it that way, and they probably don't have time to try to figure out how to do it differently or more efficiently
Yeah,
because they're just in it, they're just in it. So a person like you can step in and see all of this dysfunction so much easier, with a fresh set of eyes because they're all
yeah,
just like, this is what we've done. And not that they're not willing to make the changes, but they don't have the capacity probably to even think about it. They need a person, an expert like you, to see the mismatch and to help them make the corrections. I think that
yeah,
that's,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. So
no,
you
no.
had said like it could be dysfunction, as you mentioned. So sometimes you're living in that dysfunction. Other times, I think companies hold on to their current ways for too long when they're not thinking about, oh, I'm happy where I am right now. And oh, sure, we don't need to grow. We're happy. We're just going to stay here. Fine, then stay with your current technology and your processes. Most companies have big goals. Like we want to double in 10 years, or we want to, acquire another company. You need to start planning for that. So even if you're okay with your technology now, your current technology will most likely not work for what you want to accomplish in your goal. So how are you planning to be successful, and thinking through finances, thinking through people, thinking through technology for your future goals is what they need to do. And another part that always breaks my heart a little bit, you have quite often a IT manager or IT director, somebody that's grown up with the business. And I think sometimes they view me as a threat, and it's absolutely not that. You think about how you've learned the most. Most of the time, you have somebody there that's coaching and mentoring you, that's grooming you. My entire corporate career, I always had coaches and mentors that were feeding into me. There are certain times where I was able to take a skill and completely learn it on my own, but that's very time consuming because you're reading a lot, you're, doing research, you're watching videos, and then applying it and, going back and forth. I would love to establish great relationships with these technology managers or directors as well to help groom them. What can I do to empower you? where do you feel, you have a growth area, thinking through where you are now or where you want to be. Like if you are an IT manager and you would love to eventually, be the CTO of the company or the CIO of a company, well, let's start talking about some of those skills and I can help groom you to get there as well. That's another, strong opportunity for some of these smaller companies.
And that is a terrific segue into another conversation. Explain to our audience um, what is a CIO or a CTO or that fractional piece? Because I think that a lot of people, I think it's something that really is appealing to people. I think that there's a lot of maybe a little bit of cloudiness around it, I'll call it.
Absolutely.
But I think, I mean, so yeah, just kind of share with our audience some insights on it's kind of new, right? I mean, it's not, but it sort of is. So just kind of share a little bit of insight with us, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think there's a misunderstanding about fractional. People that are doing fractional are spending a lot of time educating on fractional, and that's fine. There's a lot of great information out there as well. I think there's kind of more, there's that kind of passionate academic of a fractional is someone on your leadership team that is contributing on a part-time, or partial basis. And then there's also other people that are just a little bit more fractional is somebody that's part-time, right? So both of them are the same, but whether that somebody has to be on your leadership team or not, it's what works for the company. But I think the biggest win that companies need to understand is you want to grow in managing your technology, you don't have to hire somebody full time. And you don't have to eliminate your technology team, right? You need to balance that. And that's where you can hire experienced technologists, experienced CIOs, or whatever, title. Basically, you can hire experience to work in your business on a part-time basis. So if they're working part-time in your business, you're paying them a partial salary. And the other benefit is if people are working fractional, they're not W-2, they're not on your payroll. So they're not getting your benefits. They're not, taking PTO on your time. So those are also financial benefits as well. So that's, I think, first and foremost, what people need to understand. You can grow into that. You can start with some technology leadership and then phase into more and more. And I think most fractional people, me included, will help you find that long-term person when you're ready for it, groom that person, and then step out. So it could be, I help you find that person, help onboard that person, and slowly start backing out and maybe just supporting that individual until they're good to go on their own, and then just kind of fade into the sunset.
Yes. Doesn't that sound lovely?
Yeah,
I think fractional is I think it's so flexible. And to your point, it has this opportunity where as a growing company, maybe you can't take on a bunch more salaries, but you can, look at some other opportunities. So between hiring a consultant, bringing on a VA, looking at something fractional. So
yeah.
can you define kind of the difference between those three? I mean, I guess VA probably doesn't need any explanation. VAs are great for admin work, payroll, things like that, and they're very economical. But between a consultant and a fractional, is there much of a difference, or what would be the primary difference between those
Well,
two?
I think from a definition point, no, I personally am fine working as a consultant or working as a fractional. Typically, if you go from the definition, a fractional is somebody that is, again, part of your leadership team. So you can think about them as being on your team. So you establish an agreement and, just kind of renew that person year to year or adjust it. Like maybe you start with somebody that's working in general, 25% of their time. You're not going to most likely define it with just hours, though. I would highly against that. You're going to be talking about a little bit more business accomplishments. Like, let's go back to the example of you have this IT manager. So I could come as a fractional that I'm working with the leadership team to establish the strategic direction and then working with that IT manager to enable them to execute on it. Or if you don't have that manager, it could be, and I will lead the execution of it. So you're defining the work and what needs to be happening, where you report. And it can also be more of, again, like an advisement. So maybe over time, then that IT manager becomes an IT director, and now I am just working with that person to really enable them, with additional work and time. So that's usually what the fractional is. Consultant is usually a definition of work. So if somebody needs an ERP, from enterprise resource management, or processes, they don't have the right ERP, or a customer relationship management, a CRM. It could be, can you help us define the process, identify the product, and implement it? That would be more of a project definition. We would scope that again, like what are we accomplishing? Maybe that's a 6-12 month project. And then once you're done with that the contract is done.
Okay, that's so helpful. And I got to say, your passion and your knowledge really shines through.
Oh,
Incredibly.
thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I
Yeah.
think it's really helpful for people to understand just exactly those differences to figure out what makes the most sense for their own businesses. But let's move now
Yeah.
beyond the business. As much as we love talking about business,
Yeah.
let's step away for just a moment and think about what it's like, um, what your family like is like. You talked about it right away at the beginning. You talked about
Yeah.
the balance and you talked about, your interactions with your husband and we've talked about the grandkids. So family is obviously very, very near and dear to your heart. So share with us, at some point you must have recognized that many of the same leadership principles that you share with all of the people that you meet and encounter throughout your career. There's similar principles, I think, between business and in family. So share with us a little bit about your new book and what inspired you to write
Yeah.
it. I'll let you say the title because I'm so excited to allow you to do that. So go for it. Let's hear it.
Thank you. Yeah, you start peeling back layers on who you are, what you're trying to do. Like, especially when I was when my kiddos were younger, and when I was doing some of the part-time. And I just realized, for me, I am very process and logical oriented. My sisters will always be like, "Oh yeah, we come to you for advice because you are so logical." And I also feel like leadership is a strong quality in me, and I want to instill that in other people. So, going back to an example like leadership in the family versus leadership at work, I remember learning, like, earlier in some of my management career, like, you take these management courses, and it was situational leadership, and it was, how do you manage people differently based on their confidence and their capability? So if they have low confidence, low capability, you're leaning in a lot more. You're saying, good job, Kristin, you did a great job on that, and how do you think you would execute on the next phase of it? So I'm dealing with what you're trying to accomplish as well as building your capability. But if you did that with somebody that's high capable and high confidence, they're going to be looking at you like, oh my gosh, you're driving me crazy. You're treating me like a baby. So somebody that's high confidence, high capability, you back off a lot more, you do it differently. And then, of course, vice versa with low confidence, high capability, you're going to focus on, confidence, high capability, low confidence, you're focusing on more on, I know you can accomplish it. You've done so much. Let's talk about what you're trying to do. And I've used that in my family life as well. So, for example, if my kids are learning how to ride a bike, you're teaching them some of the concepts with bike, but if they're also like crying after they fell, I can't do it, I can't do it, then you're leaning into their confidence. You can do it, and I know I know you'll do it. Well, I'm here to help you through it. Those are the types of confidence versus capability conversations that it's really all about leadership. And if I think back again, when my kids were first getting their phones, of course, phones back then were a bit different than now, but I thought, I don't want to be arguing about these phones, and I want them to understand it's a responsibility. So how are we going to manage that privilege? So I had established a super simple I shouldn't say we. I shouldn't say I mean, I should say we. My husband and I established a very easy contract with our kids. And it was like, you will not have your phone at the dinner table. You will not have your phone in your bedroom after 9 p.m., which was their bedtime. You won't have your phone when we're spending time with grandparents. Just I think there was 5 rules. And then at the end, it was a simple consequence of, and if you disobey these rules, then you need to give your parents the phone. And that was just so much easier to then guide by the rules. Like if they were like, oh, honey, it's 9 o'clock, remember? And it was up to them to do the right thing. Oh, put their phone in the central area. And if not, they knew they had to give up their phone. So it stopped the arguing. And it also just helped them be leaders, knowing what they needed to accomplish and then letting them accomplish it and knowing what the consequence. So it just stopped that arguing. Um, so now it's been quite a few years where I just see these situations. You at a restaurant, you look at a dinner table and everyone's on their phone, and it breaks my heart. You see all these situations. I'm like, oh my goodness, this family could use a contract. And my husband's like, well, what are you going to do about it? I'm like, yeah, I should write a book. So I kept thinking about it. So that was my New Year's resolution, was just do it or shut up, was kind of my concept. And so I leaned into the writing. I've never written before. And I didn't know if I was just going to start and just go, oh, yeah, that was a great thought, but I definitely I don't want to accomplish this. But once I was really leaning into the writing, it was flowing, it was working. So I finished my book. I have gotten through editing, and I have a lovely cover. So I'm working on getting it published in the next couple of weeks. Um, so the title is The Family Phone Contract: Relationships versus Screens. So it's not available yet, but I will definitely, I'll let you know when it's available. And I don't know if there's something I can do with, well, actually, people can contact me. How about we do that so people
Yeah.
will know when it's available? I plan to get a website up at some point, but my email is Monica at MonRoeBusinessSolutions.com. But we can make it available on the podcast too, right? So people can contact
Yeah.
me, or I can even just put the link of when it is available.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll have a link to your website definitely in the description to the podcast so people can find that there. And your LinkedIn profile, I'm sure I'll have that in the description
Yeah.
too, so people can keep tabs on that when they're looking for it. So you touched on a couple of things while you're talking about your book. It's so exciting. And I love it. I love that you created kind of a simple contract. There's just 5 things. Because the first thing that my mind went to when my kids were small, creating rules is great. Upholding the rules is harder, especially on a
Yeah,
busy day and when everybody's tired and when someone.
absolutely.
So share a little bit about, do you have some insights on what people can do when they're having a tough day? Dang it. And enforcing these contracts is great, but man, how
Well, first
do you
off,
do it?
give yourself grace, because no one's perfect, right? Just like we talked earlier about work-life balance, and I know some people cringe at that concept, but it's really just trying to establish balance. It's never perfect, right? It's always give and take. It's a journey. There's seasons, as we mentioned earlier. And that's the same thing, your kids will do great and all of a sudden they're not doing great. You're doing great at being a parent and then you're not, or you're doing great at managing your own phone use and then all of a sudden you're not. It happens, life happens, and you just need to give yourself grace. But I do have a chapter at the end about how to, like, manage or reinforce the contract. And I definitely am saying that about, you got to give yourself grace and just work through it. And I do think like establishing a contract that's manageable is key. You don't want to put anything and everything in there because it's not manageable. You're just setting yourself up for failure. But that's some of the concepts that I walk through in the book. It's meant to be an easy step-by-step weekend read for busy parents. I'm not trying to do a lot of research or make this complicated. It's more of here's a tool that you can implement in a weekend to just help you move in the right direction. Just like we were talking about with technology in your business, you need to really set that vision and then establish a plan on how to get there based on what you're trying to accomplish from a business perspective. And the same thing with phones. Like if the first thing you want to do is just stop arguing, then what are you arguing about? Well, I'm arguing because my kids are ignoring me when I'm trying to talk to them. So establish some rules around where they can use their phone, or, no, it's not at the dinner table. Make it simple and establish some success. And then later on, you might need to update the contract to be a bit more robust, but it's baby steps for success, and baby step reassess is a lot of times what I've been telling my teams of, just baby step and then reassess, where do we go from here, but moving in the right direction to establish some wins, some successes.
That is so important. And that's what I was thinking about too next was, screens have been such a hot topic for so long. I think that, um, you know, getting, and then the kids and their friends, it's all about who they're hanging around with and how they're spending their time. But I love that you take a moment to allow the grace, but you also are using the concepts that you've learned as such a successful leader in business to better manage your home. And I think that that opens the door to a whole nother thing. Like we're out in the workplace doing business deals or whatever it is, and all of those relationships and the things that we learn there can be so transferred into our home. But I just don't think we ever connect that dot as a person, like, or and maybe as a woman, as a mom. I think so much of the responsibility in the home does still kind of fall on the mom as traditionally, and connecting that dot between our strengths in one place to use those same strengths at home too, I think is a really key insight and something we could tap into more often.
Yeah, yeah. I always think about empowering people, right? So if I have an IT manager, again, how can I empower them to do more? With my kids, or my husband, how can I empower them to do more? So I put everything on our family calendar. So then when they ask me like, oh, what time or when is whatever, I'm like, it's on the calendar. So then it's like, I'm not going to keep answering the question. I'm gonna empower you to proactively look at the calendar and get that answer yourself.
Putting that ownership, though, on everybody else is really important for your own well-being. And I think that it helps you, again, kind of establish better the balance that you're looking
Yeah,
for and kind of the
yeah.
boundaries and things. And people get used to that because, nobody wants to keep asking the same questions, nor does anyone want to keep responding to the same questions over and over. So
Yeah,
having a calendar or having those kinds of tools or resources available. It does
yeah,
take a minute to put them together, of course, but you'll be glad you did. I think it's so, so great. Um,
yeah,
all right. So also, leadership, you say, begins at home. One of the themes in your book is that technology itself isn't necessarily the problem. So leadership is. Um, so help me understand some really good technology habits. So when we're looking at our children and back to that idea of the screen time, what are some
yeah,
good technology habits? I mean, you can put parameters around it, but again, I'm not thinking about the way in which we argue with our children about how much screen time they have, but more so
yeah,
just kind of healthy tech habits today as it relates
yeah.
to social media too.
Yeah, so this is where I go back into my probably excessive logic brain. So I think about the what, why, and the how. So, what? Establishing that vision. So, in the business, our vision is we want to double in 10 years. And that's great. But you can't be done. You can't just say that and it'll be accomplished. Or the what in the house. I want us to have some great, family meals 5 days a week with, without phones. So then you get into the how. How are we going to accomplish this? Because if you don't break that down, then you're not going to be able to accomplish the success. So the how is, maybe we need to create, additional products. We're going to double our sales team. We need, however you're going to double that revenue. Or the how is we're going to establish at home a central spot for all of our phones. So that way they can be docked there. They can, we ensure there's 5 people in our family, there's 5 phones there, or whatever, it's that how. So you can set yourself up for success. Um, those are the critical, but I think the other part from a leadership point of view, like from me leading through that, it's the why. having that conversation and letting everyone understand the why. Because if you set some vision and people don't know why you're trying to accomplish that, then it's hard for them to buy into it. So I think that why is up to that leader to articulate that or explain why is that important to us. So whether it's why we want to double or why um, we want to double our revenue. In order to do that, we need, additional products. And this is why those products will matter, or this is why our sales team needs to accomplish X. This is why we need a docking station in our home. So I think that communication is what gets everyone on board. It's not only the how, but then the why. And then, yeah, I think I articulated
Yeah.
it's the what, it's the why, and the how, and getting
Mhm.
everyone on board with that. That's what a leader needs to do.
hmm And whether it's in the home or in business, I love
Yeah,
that. I think that
yeah,
is, I love it so interchangeable. And when we allow ourselves to look at it that way and treat our home life as a professional parent or leader in the home, you're a leader at work
yeah,
too, and they can be
yeah,
interchangeable if we allow ourselves to do that
yeah.
instead of keeping
So
things so separate.
absolutely. So I mean, I just if somebody's trying to think through something, I always go through the how concept, and some of it you're like, well, that one doesn't, necessarily pertain. But if you think through those concepts, I think it really helps you break it down and then put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Okay, now from my kid's point of view, if I
Mhm.
think through the what, the why, the how, the who, break it down so I get their perspective, that will help you set everyone up for success.
Yeah, I think you're so true. You're so true. So great. All right. So before we wrap it up, I always got to ask, what is some really great advice? So you could look at it from a couple different perspectives. You
Okay.
could say, what kind of advice would you have given the Monica Swanson from 30 years ago? Or what would you like to
Uh,
give some of our young leaders today? Or even young moms, maybe.
yeah. Well, I had said earlier, give yourself grace with some of the fun things. And I think it's empathy for the younger Monica, and just like calm down a little bit, as well as anyone that you're leading. But I really do think it's empathy because everyone, tries so hard. But it's really hard to be perfect, right? Nobody's going to be perfect. And if you find somebody's stumbling in one area, it's usually because they're focused over here. And so give them empathy over here, have them understand I now need you to look here and to spend some time here, which then means they're probably going to lighten up on whatever they're accomplishing here. So give them empathy and then that open communication to really peel back the layers of tell me your thought process. Tell me, what are you feeling good about? Where are you feeling uncomfortable? Because then you'll probably realize they've been focusing here and they're happy with this, but that's excellent. And let's talk a little bit about this other area. So this could be homework, and this could be, spending time with your family. This could be in the business. I've been really focusing on understanding the products, but I've not spent as much time as building up my team or finance and sales. And, so it's understanding somebody's perspective and just give us all, give yourself, give your team, your kids, everyone some empathy.
I love that. So the empathy, peeling back the layers, explaining the why, and the grace. That is all such great advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Looking
you.
ahead, what kind of exciting things after the book launch in the next few weeks? What kind of exciting things are you looking forward to with MonRoe Business Solutions?
Yeah, well, I feel like the book launch is just the start of, that adventure. So I'm excited to get that out. And then, like I said, I'm building a website for it and giving myself grace for not having that website up yet. We just had a big family vacation, a family wedding out in Montana, which was a blast. And I just took 2 weeks off to be in that moment. But I think it's getting the word out about the book. So watching whatever progresses from there, I have no idea. Maybe I'll do a bit of speaking. I think I'd love to speak on about the book or the concepts behind it. And then, see what that does for my business as well. I hopefully it gives me a bit more visibility, but just continuing to help my clients. I'm having fun with my business, so it's seeing how these two tie together.
So great. I think it's just so great. And again, I just love the way you've been able to um, kind of interchange, make those two things interchangeable. Like, you've melded your business and your personal life together because you've taken the strengths that you had from, you got these strengths and you're using them in both so effectively. And I applaud you for
Yeah.
that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, at first I thought they were two separate things. I had my business and this book, was more of a passion project and should I do it or not? And then when I met the person that I'm working with now on the publishing, she had said, I think there's a tie there, Monica. So again, going through the what, why, how, peeling it back,
Mhm.
and it was like, you're right. It's the leadership and it's me being a logic process person. That's definitely who I am. It's what I'm doing in my business. That's what I did with the contract. Let's tie that together.
Oh, so great. So smart. I love it. I'm excited. I can't wait for it to come out. You'll have to keep us posted, but we will have
Absolutely.
all of your contact and links in the description. Thanks again for joining us today, Monica. It was so wonderful to have you.
Yeah, thank you. And the weather didn't impact our conversation, so
Yeah, I
that's
think
good.
we're okay.
Yeah, good.
All right.
Thanks.
You bet. Thanks for listening to the Savvy Leader Podcast. If something in this conversation made you think differently, that's the point. Share this episode with someone who needs it and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's next. For more conversations on clarity, alignment, and real leadership, connect with me through the SavvyLivingNetwork.com and join the conversation at the Savvy Leaders Lounge on Substack. Until next time, lead with intention.